Athletes are superior to bodybuilders, that's no secret, as bodybuilders only have to focus on one thing: muscle hypertrophy or muscle growth, which sure, athletes focus on from time to time. But athletes also have to prioritize strength, they have to prioritize endurance, and they also have to prioritize power. Before getting my degree in exercise science, I thought athletes just trained the one they wanted the most, or needed the most. And the order of what physical attribute they trained didn't matter. When the truth is, it does matter when you train what, and how you train it, which is low-key a little complicated. But it's my job to make it clear for you. As in this video, I'm going to teach you how to develop your own athlete workout program. Tons of fitness influencers like to hide the secrets from you. But like I've said in the past, I'm not a fitness influencer. I'm not going to hide how to make a certain workout program to make a quick buck off of you. The only thing I ask you is to join my community in case the fitness matrix attacks me, which is completely free, plus you get 2 free fitness courses when you join. I'll leave a link in the description and the pinned comment so you can join my athletic bodybuilding community or the Leon Edwards crew. Like I said, I have a degree in this field, but I've also trained MMA as a hobby and I'm fascinated by the world of strength and conditioning. So I've done a lot of what I'm going to tell you in this video in terms of training it for myself. And I actually have a few clients who I train one-on-one, as well as in my online community and program where I'm training athletes to improve their athletic performance. The process of maximizing your athletic performance is called athlete periodization. When I was a newer guy in the field of strength and conditioning, I was so confused about what periodization was. I didn't even see bodybuilding coaches talking about periodization, which I know now proved that these bodybuilding coaches were morons. I learned through time that periodization is super simple. It's just the step-by-step process for improving performance, which is to build muscle, which helps you build strength, which will then help you build power. That's literally it. Bodybuilders just train for one adaptation, with this muscle growth. So why are you using periodization? Periodization, for the most part, is just a way coaches can complicate their workout program, which allows them to look like an authority figure. Some of you might know my job before becoming a full-time YouTuber was a personal trainer at a college campus. And the fitness director, who was the head of strength and conditioning at that campus, was like a mentor to me. He knew so much about strength and conditioning, so I asked him, hey, what is periodization? And he straight up told me periodization, for the most part, is for a coach to brag to other coaches, or I guess their clients, about how complicated their workout program is. Because again, I'm just going to reiterate this a lot during this video. Periodization is just building muscle to build strength to build power. Just viewing periodization this way prevents you from worrying about things like microcycles and mesocycles and all that. What periodization truly is about is when you train what. If you're a hobby athlete like myself, none of this really matters because you're just doing simple periodization of muscle to strength to power. But if you're an athlete, you need to know that a proper strength and conditioning program depends on 4 different periods: the off-season, the preseason, the in-season, and the postseason. The physical adaptation you train in each is what develops a complete athlete. And with the postseason, it recovers that athlete. I'll describe in-season and postseason first, as it's the most simple and I can do it quicker. Regarding the process of creating an athlete workout program, it isn't what you think, as in-season training involves less time in the weight room. This is because this is a time period where an athlete is focusing on sport-specific skills. Think of a basketball player. What matters more, being fast and strong, or actually being good at basketball? Even if you're stupid and you think being fast and strong is more important than actually being good at the sport, you're gonna have tons of practice and tons of games getting in the way of your training. Explain why this period has super low volume. So in-season has very low volume. Actually, it's a little different because there are 2 types of athletes and they train differently in the season. You got multi-event sports athletes and single-event sports athletes. Multi-event sports athletes are like basketball players who have 80 games in a season and they're back to back to back. And then there's single event sports athletes like MMA fighters, where your training all leads up to one night or one fight. Multi-event sports athletes in season is called a maintenance phase, while single event sports athletes, it's called a peaking phase. You can only peak your athletic performance for about 1 to 2 weeks. So obviously if you got a fight, you're gonna peak then because it's 1 day of performance. Trying to peak any longer than 7 to 28 days is going to result in reduced performance capacity and may lead to overtraining. This is why multi-event sports athletes like NBA players cannot peak, but they're trying to maintain. They're trying to maintain the power, strength, and endurance that they got in the off-season and the preseason for the rest of the season. So for the peaking or single event sports athletes, your in-season training is defined by very low volume, so 1 to 3 reps per exercise with 1 to 3 sets per exercise. The intensity of the training is going to be very high to very low, or 50 to 90% of your 1 rep max. My strength and conditioning mentor I used to have, I asked him about 1 rep max and he told me people don't really use it. What's used more is just asking the athlete, hey, how hard are you lifting? But for most of us, it's how close you are to failure. So I'm gonna give you the 1 rep maxes during the entire video. However, from a practical standpoint, most coaches don't use them. You can clearly see there's a lot of variability when you're training a peaking athlete, as intensity can be very high to very low. This is because coaches are tapering their athletes. Tapering involves an increased emphasis on technique work and nutrition intervention. An example of tapering is an athlete's fight week. The beginning of the week, an athlete will do their last hard session, which is obviously hard and intense. After that last session, the intensity gradually decreases throughout the week. And one of the best low intensity activities that fighters do is pad work. But this is pad work where they're not trying to put so much power and try and knock somebody out, but they're focusing on technique. So they're going very light. Again, emphasis on technique, and fighters will also be going over their game plan. So you'll see them grappling as well, going over possible submissions that might work and things like that. Now with multi-event sport or maintenance athletes, you have low to moderate volume consisting of 2 to 5 sets per exercise of 3 to 6 reps, with the intensity being moderate to high, or athletes lifting 85 to 93% of their 1 rep max. The biggest thing to address here is moderate to high intensity, but low to moderate volume. Multi-event sport athletes often have to lift on the same day as their game. So low-key, they must choose. Do I train with higher intensity or higher volume? Which one do you think will fatigue you more? Volume or intensity? Most people say intensity, but it's actually volume. This is why jogging is so taxing on the body, and I made a whole video discussing this. It's not because of the intensity, but it's because of the volume. An athlete who does 10 sets light will fatigue their body way more than an athlete who does like 3 to 5 sets hard. These numbers I'm using are an example and not exact. I'm just trying to give you an example. Maintenance athletes lift hard, not long.
That's what she said.
Now on to postseason. There's a meme that when an athlete gets knocked out of a competition, off to Cancun they go. Well, low-key from a performance standpoint, it makes sense as the athlete needs to recover and rest their body. A total break is what most athletes do, and it's great. I mean, a lot of them are training 9 months out of the year, so just having a break from the sport in general is awesome, not only for their physical health, but for their mental health. However, a deload or an active rest period is best. I can make a separate video on deload or active rest. If you want to see that, drop a like and leave a comment saying you want to see it. I made it before on my channel way long ago, but it got so little views and there was little interest, so I haven't made it again. But if you want to, again, drop a like. Now on to the big periods, the off-season and the preseason. These are the periods where you build a base. You're laying out the soil, you're planting your seed to ultimately grow your tree, and that tree is your athletic performance. And low-key, your hopes and dreams. So this is why the off-season matters so much. Like I told you before, there are 3 periods: off-season, preseason, in-season, and off-season. These periods are a lot like math in school. If you mess up one period of math, you are screwed for the rest. Like you can't do algebra if you can't add numbers right, which you learn in elementary school. The off-season is defined by the period of the lowest amount of sports-specific work. So this is the best and only time you can incorporate high-volume training. But what does high-volume training really mean? It means growing and building muscle, or athletic bodybuilding, which is what my channel is all about. Since my goal is building my physique and looking aesthetic and looking good, I do athletic bodybuilding year-round. So I'm like an athlete who has an off-season for the rest of their life. But with my athletes who work with me one-on-one or through my peak athleticism package, I always start off by giving them an athletic bodybuilding, or I guess it is a bodybuilding workout. And then they'll message me, Mario, I'm trying to be a better athlete. You gave me a bodybuilding workout. Is everything okay? And this is when I explain to them the simple explanation of athlete periodization. You've already heard it before: build muscle to build strength to build power. So we need to build that muscle to make you powerful, man. Athletic bodybuilding makes you aesthetic, yes, but it also makes you athletic. There's a reason I call what I preach athletic bodybuilding. During this phase, we're not using machines to build muscle. There are some coaches who might do this, but from my personal opinion, what's the point when you can just build that muscle with athletic movements? Because those athletic movements build functional athletic muscle. I help people build that kind of muscle no matter what their goals are. But if you're an athlete who wants to work with me and make sure you got all the steps of athletic periodization down, you can check out my 120-day peak athleticism package, which is everything you need to build your athletic performance. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Or you can work with me on a more personal basis through one-on-one coaching. I'll leave a link to my coaching application in the description as well. So yeah, if you're interested in working with me, I'll leave a link to both of those in the description. So the off-season period, which is defined as the hypertrophy or strength endurance phase, consists of high volume, 3 to 6 sets per exercise of 8 to 20 reps, with low to moderate intensity of 50 to 75% of your 1 rep max. High volume training is going to build that muscle, and the higher reps will aid in muscular endurance, which is beneficial in all sports. However, the end of the off-season phase goes into the beginning stages of the preseason phase, which is in the next phase. Preseason is when you start to implement more sport-specific work, which for many of you is when your coach starts to schedule practices for the upcoming season. You start the preseason from a weightlifting standpoint with strength training. In the offseason, you built muscle, which will help you maximize your strength during this period, because bigger muscles lead to greater strength potential. When training for strength, you're lifting at a high intensity because you're lifting a lot of weight, or you're training near max at 80 to 95% of your 1 rep max. And for volume, it will be moderate to high, or 2 to 6 sets per exercise, consisting of 2 to 6 reps. 2 to 6 reps being obvious, as that's the strength rep range. This is the only period of time where you can wear a belt for your big lifts. You can see here when I did my strength challenge with my brother that I was using it. However, I changed my stance on this, and I still don't use a belt for heavy lifts, but that's just my personal preference. But through strength and conditioning guidelines, they recommend that you do wear a belt. The second half of preseason training is now going to prioritize power, using that strength you built in the preseason 1 phase to maximize that power. Power is the most important physical attribute in sports. Most people think it's strength, but in sports, you never have enough time to generate peak force. It's about generating force fast, aka power. This period is defined by training of 30 to 85% of your 1 rep max, low volume, or 2 to 5 sets for each exercise of 2 to 5 reps. The reason you're training low volume is because you must train near 100% neural capacity to get any kind of results from your power training. Meaning if you're not doing reps at your absolute best and moving the weight as fast as you possibly can, you're basically getting no results. So if you're tired from your workout and you're doing power exercises now, you're gonna get no results. Power exercises include moving light to moderate weights fast, or doing plyometric exercises. Now I'll explain the schedule and how to put all of what I just told you together. To create a great athlete workout program, I recommend you have 16 to 24 weeks. However, I'll give you guidelines right now for a 16-week athlete program. The first 4 weeks, aka the off season, is athletic bodybuilding. The next 4 weeks is preseason 1 or strength training. Then the next 4 weeks is preseason 2 or power training. And the last 4 weeks is whatever adaptation your sport needs the most, which for most sports is power endurance. If you want a power endurance or a cardio guide for athletes, drop a like and leave a comment letting me know you want to see it. Keep in mind, when I do release it, I'll title it something like MMA cardio guide or something like that, just because it speaks more to my audience, because most of them are into MMA. However, it'll be for all sports. If you have an extra 20 to 24 weeks, it is kind of subjective. However, my recommendation is to add an extra 4 weeks of off-season hypertrophy work or 4 weeks of power work. Speaking of power training, I go over exactly how to program plyometrics in your workout routine in this video, which you need to watch like right now.